Good morning, and welcome to this week's broadcast of The Female Fight. I'm your host, Lauren Claremont, coming to you live from rainy Wilmington, North Carolina. For those of you listening in for the first time, this is a not-for-profit radio show dedicated to raising awareness about women's rights across the globe. If you downloaded this podcast from iTunes, please enjoy the artwork that accompanies our show by enabling Virtual View Podcast in the bottom right of your screen. This session's artwork features pieces by prominent Mexican artist Frida Kahlo. In light of the recent murder of notable women's activist Susana Chavez, I thought it would be best to focus today's broadcast around the Mexican women's struggle for equality over the course of the late 19th and into the 20th century. As most of our listeners already know, Mexico was one of many victims plagued by the simple-minded idea that women are of a lesser social stature than men. As early as 1691, Sister Juana Inés de la Cruz questioned, "Is his opinion to be considered as a revelation, as a principle of the holy faith that we must accept blindly?" This statement begs the question, must women always accept the plight and direction we are dealt? Even 300 years ago, women were already fighting the female fight. Despite women's intense desire for equality, or simple recognition, it was not until 1956 that women were formally recognized as individual persons from their husbands. An 1881 court case brought the idea of dependent citizenship to the forefront of the Mexican Supreme Court. The Tavere sisters were deemed expatriates when they married Spanish citizens. They were denied the rights of natural-born Mexicans, while foreign women were immediately naturalized upon marriage to a Mexican man. Despite years in and out of trial, the women were denied their natural rights as Mexican citizens because, according to Mexican law, foreigners include a Mexican woman who marries a foreigner because she must follow the condition of her husband. This piece of legislation makes it obvious that a woman was essentially an accessory of her husband's life rather than her own person. During the Mexican Revolution, women gained prominence outside the home for the first time. Women played important roles in revolutionary education as spies, cooks, nurses, and foot soldiers of new revolutionary social programs. It was with this newfound sense of importance that women began to demand legal equality and the Mexican feminist movement was set in motion. The first Mexican welfare conferences were held in 1921 and 1923, with more than 15% of the delegates present comprised of professional females. Activism such as this allowed women to take part in creating legislation that would help them most. Following the 20s, the 1930s emphasized the mobilization of women as workers and members of socialist leagues. Though women were still glorified as maternal figures in the household, the national suffrage campaign also emerged in this decade. The 1940s brought a surge of maternal respect with the increased celebration of Mother's Day. However, females everywhere were proving that maternal instincts could coincide with occupational responsibility. Thus, it was in 1947 that women were granted the right to vote at the municipal level. This was further finalized in 1953 when all women were guaranteed the right to participate in national elections. With this advancement in 1956, it was considered unjust to treat women like property, imposing on them a change of nationality without their express consent and solely as a consequence of marriage, thus ending the dependent citizenship battle that had waged for almost a century since the Tavere sisters. Unfortunately, securing the right to vote has not put an end to inequality in Mexican households, the workplace, or even as citizens. As recent as 2001, it was alleged that although legislation in Latin America is changing, courts are still ruling conservatively on issues such as the female's right to abortion. It was not until 2008 that abortion during the first trimester was legalized in Mexico City. But again, despite this law, as the second most populous Catholic country in the world, women's rights to do what they wish with their body is often shrouded in difficult cultural decisions. As we reach the present, you might be interested to know about the recent events affecting Mexico today. Felipe Calderon came to power in 2006. Since his militarization attempt to fight a war on drug trafficking, more than 28,000 homicides have been recorded. Most have gone unsolved as unorganized crime runs rampant through the streets. Some are declaring a gender emergency as increased numbers of women are kidnapped and killed. While the government seeks to hide this feminicide, they claim that excessive attacks on women may be due to their choice of lifestyle or dress. This claim has led many female activists, such as Susana Chavez, to stand up and scream, "Not one more death," especially if women are not guaranteed the right to live due to dress choice or the like. Unfortunately, Ms. Chavez was the victim of an unorganized murder last week. She was murdered in the border town of Ciudad Juarez, where over 500 women have been killed since 1993. She allegedly entered the house of a young man high on drugs. The police claim it was a sad coincidence that had nothing to do with the death threats Ms. Chavez and her family have been receiving over the course of the past few months due to Ms. Chavez's activist activities, but so far it has been inconclusive. Ms. Chavez's case, as well as the countless faceless women struggling against modern repression, are the reason this radio broadcast exists. Females as well as males of the world must stand up for equality and partake in the female fight. That is the only way we will save the future.